Okay, so we're still talking about strings, and we have the concatenation method, the concatenation operator, and we also have the length property that we just used in the last video. Now, another very useful method will enable us to get substrings out of a string. What do I mean by that? So if we have the word cranberry, we can just get the first three letters. So we can just show the first three letters here. Or we could just show, what is this, NBE? We can just show these three letters. Or we could just show these three letters, or whatever we want. We can capture substrings of our string. Okay, so how do we do that? So this is a second project that I'd like you to do for this homework assignment. So you can, let's see. Now you can use the same form that you had earlier and add another button and set its name property to this and its text property to substrings. Okay, so we're going to get substrings. And double click the button and add in this code and this code. Okay, and pause the video while you do that, and then let's discuss the code. So let's see, you added in, we have a string box, and we're going to get the text from that box, and we're going to feed it into or assign it to our string variable. And then we're going to show three message boxes. So we're going to do this one, and this one, and this one. Now, what are we going to do? What are we going to show? Remember, this is just the name of the box, message box, so we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to take our variable, which was fed from the text box, and so here it is, and we're going to use a method called substring. And substring, it looks like anyway, takes two different arguments. Okay? And the first time we run this, we're going to put in 0 and 3 for the two arguments. The next time we run it, we're going to put in 3 and 3. And the last time, we'll hold off on looking at that, but we're going to do something else. So what do the arguments do for this substring function? Sorry, substring method. So what are these 0 and 3? Well, what was the result? The result was here, CRAN, right? So what does this mean? So 0 means start with the first letter. Remember, they count from 0 usually, not from 1. So 0 means the first letter, 1 means the second letter, 2 means the third letter, and so on. So anyway, 0 means the first letter, so start with the first letter and capture that one and the following one and the following one. In other words, capture 3 characters. So that's what this does. So what does this mean? This means start with the third character, which is what? For cranberry, the third character is, no, I made a mistake. This means start with the fourth character. So we shouldn't make that mistake, but I guess we might. At least I just did. Start with the fourth character and capture the next 3. So the fourth character in cranberry is N, so it's N, B, and E. Okay, and then this one. What does this mean? In this case, first of all, let's just notice that we only have actually one argument in here. It's kind of a long thing, but it's one argument. How do I know that? Because here we had a comma, so that means we had 2 arguments. Here again we had a comma, that means we had 2 arguments. But here we don't have any comma, so there's really just 1 argument here. So we're using the substring function in a different way because we're not using it with 2 arguments. So if we're using it in a different way, it's going to respond, it's expecting something different when you have just 1 argument versus when you give it 2 arguments. When you give it just 1 argument, it means start at that argument, start at that place, and then get everything to the right of that. So what place are we starting at? What does this mean? So here we have string results.length. So that's the length of the string. And then we subtract 3 from it. So whatever the length of the string is, we're going back 3. So we're starting there. So that means we're going to collect the last 3 items, which is what you get here, RRY. Okay? What he says about this is, in this last one, in the final instance, you're providing only 1 parameter. Now I've been using the word argument, he's using the word parameter. And anyway, there's a difference between, well, we won't get into it now. Okay. Alright, so this tells the substring method, since there's only 1 parameter, having 1 parameter tells the substring method to start at the given position, which in our case was the length of the string minus 3. So how long was the string? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's 9 minus 3, but remember actually it starts at 0, so it's 8 minus 3, so that's 5. So start at position 5, which means start 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get everything to the right of this. So not including this, everything to the right of that. So and tells the substring method to start at the given position and grab everything right up to the end. In this case you're using the substring method with the length method, so you're saying grab everything from 3 characters in from the right of the string to the end. Maybe I counted wrong. Okay, but anyway, that's what it does. Okay, next one is formatting with strings. So we're still talking about some things that we can do with strings. So remember earlier, in earlier videos, we talked about working with numbers, and we talked about integers, and we talked about doubles and singles. Okay, those are data types, and now we've been discussing strings as another data type, and just like with the number data types, we had different things we could do with them, like add them, subtract them, multiply, divide them, and so on. We have different things that we can do, different operations and functions that we can use on strings. For example, we can concatenate strings, we can get their lengths, and we can do the substring thing here, substring method, and here's something else that we can do. Okay, so here we did some division, and then we put it in a message box here, and since it's in a message box, it has to be converted to a string, right? We always do that. And here's the result. So this is kind of looks crazy. For most purposes we wouldn't need so many decimal numbers, so many decimal digits. So maybe we should learn how to format strings, especially strings that have numbers. So he says in this case you don't really need to see the 14 decimal places. 2 or 3 would be fine. What you need is to format the string so that you see everything to the left of the decimal point. So all the numbers to the left of the decimal point, we usually want to see those, but only 3 digits to the right. Okay, so how do we do that? So this is another part of your homework. So here he says do something from your earlier exercise, but we didn't do that. So you're going to create a new form, and you're going to have a double. So you have to declare this as a double using the dim statement. and declare this as a double using the dim statement. I'm sorry, no, that's already done. And then you have a button on the form. Sorry, you need to do that first. And then we're going to have some message boxes generated. So here's a message box, and here's the what happened here. We divided 12 by 7. Remember, these are doubles, so we're going to have a lot of decimal places. A lot of decimal digits there. Okay, so we're going to have that to string. So we're converting it to a string, and we're going to see all of these decimal digits showing up. Now, if you don't want to see all those decimal digits showing up, you can use a format function. Now, this function is not part of the double number set of methods. Remember, if something is part of this object's set of methods, then we would write double number dot and that method. Right? We've been doing that many times. For example, I think we just did it here. Double number has the toString method. Okay? But we're not doing that in this case. You see, I have a function called format, or if I want to address it, it's string.format. So I have this method, but it's not. It's actually a method of something called the string object, but we don't even know where that string object is, so we just have to access this format method by writing string.format. So anyway, I'm just trying to say that it's not it's not a method of doubles. ToString is a method of doubles. That's why we can write double dot toString, because doubles, or double number dot toString, because doubles have a toString method. So some objects have one type of method, and other objects have other methods. And if an object has a certain type of method, you can access that method by taking an example or an instance of that object. This is an instance or an example of a double, and so you can take an instance or an example of that object and then write dot the method. Okay? Remember, don't get confused. This is a method even though we didn't have the parentheses here. Okay, but double does not have a format method. So we can't write double.format. Now, how do you know that double doesn't have a format method? You don't know that. You have to check it. You have to look it up. Look up on the internet, and we haven't seen exactly how to do that, but you have to look up on the internet and see whether doubles have a format method. You'll see that doubles do have a toString method, but you won't find a format method anywhere in the list of the methods associated with doubles. And you can look that up and see it. But anyway, you can still access the format method by writing string format. But then when you do that, you have to put in the appropriate arguments in there. So these are the appropriate arguments. So what this does is it's going to format this thing, which is our double, and this is the code for the kind of format we want. Now, we don't understand how to read this yet, but we will in about 15 seconds or 30 seconds. Okay, but this is the code about this tells it how we want to format this thing. Okay? Now, what does it mean? How do we want to format it? Okay, now the explanation of how this thing works is a little bit confusing, but let's just read it. The 0 here in the format tells the string format function to work with this is really weird, to work with the 0th data parameter. So what does that mean? That means this thing means, why is this called the 0th data parameter? If anything, it would be called the first parameter in this function, in this method. Why is it called the 0th data parameter? It says, which is a cute way, not so cute actually, of saying the second parameter. So because it's the 0th data parameter, I guess the data parameters start after the formatting parameters. So this is the formatting parameter, and this is the data parameter. So this is the first data parameter, but remember that we start counting with 0 instead of first, so it's called the 0th data parameter. That's pretty miserable, but anyway, that's what it means. Okay? So anyway, basically it just means work with this. Okay? And then what does the N3 mean? What follows the colon is how you want this number, double number, to be formatted. In this case, it says formatted according to whatever this means, N3, which means format it as a floating point number we're using 3 decimal places. So that's what N3 means. Now you can look up this string format function and see what other kinds of formatting you can do besides this. You could have said N2, for example, which means floating point number with 2 decimal places. Okay. So what do we get? We get this one here. So it gets 3 decimal places. Okay, now we want to deal with just 2 other issues. This one called localized formatting and replacing substrings. So that's like find and replace in, when you have like a regular text application like Microsoft Word or something like that. So localized formatting. So like they say that if you live in France, the decimal separator is actually a comma. So if we have a number, like for example in the United States, if you have a number like this, in France it would be written like this. So it's different. They use a different format. They use a different way of writing things. So the decimal point, in France they use a comma. So that's the way it's done. And the thing that separates the thousands here, in France they use a space. I didn't know that, but that's true, I guess. Okay, so how are you supposed to, when you make a program, are you supposed to format it like this and like this, or are you supposed to format it like this and like this? Well, they say that Windows will actually handle that. So you don't actually have to deal with it. So it says Windows can deal with such problems for you. So when Windows, they mean the version of Windows that the user is using. So people in France are using French Windows, and people in US are using English Windows or US Windows, and people in Japan are using Japanese Windows. So Windows, not you, as the programmer, you don't have to do it. Windows can deal with such problems for you based on the locale settings of the computer, and you can control, as a user of the computer, you can control the locale. He says actually here, here. You can change your language options by going to the control panel. This is in your personal computer, and clicking the regional and language options icon and changing the language to French. So you could do that, and the French user might presumably do that. So once that's done, then your program will appear in the right way. So if it was this, then a French user would see this. Okay? So this is called localized formatting. And he says by using string format appropriately, which we did, using the 0, N3, you can write one application that works properly regardless of how the user has configured the locale settings on their computer. Okay, and the last topic is replacing substrings. In other words, suppose you have something and you have a string that says hello, and you want to change it everywhere to a string that says not everywhere. You want to change it to it with a string that says goodbye. So let's see what he does here. He's picking up something from a text box, and then after he picks it up from a text box, he uses, so this is where he places it, this is where he stores it, and then he takes that, and there's a, what is this? Is this a property or a method? It's a method because it has the parentheses. So there's a replace method for string objects, because this is a string object, or a string data type, but it's also, but we also can say it's a string object. So there's a replace method, and we can replace hello with goodbye, like that. So he says run the project and enter hello world into the text box. So what it should display, what you would think it's going to display in the message box is hello world, but no, because we used the replace method, we're going to replace within the string hello world wherever hello occurs. In this case just occurs one time right here, but wherever it occurs in the string, in this string, we're going to replace it with goodbye. So instead of hello world, the message box will show goodbye world. So we have a replace method. We can take a string and use the replace method on it to replace any part of it with something else. Okay? So we have various methods for strings, various methods and properties. We have an operator, concatenation operator. Then we have a property called the length property for strings. Then we have, what else do we have? We have the substring method, which allows us to clip just a piece of the string. And we have formatting. That's actually a little bit different. That's not a method for string objects, but you can apply it to string objects. And then we have this replace method for string objects. Okay, that's enough with strings. Now we're going to come to dates, which are very important. Obviously we use dates all the time. So we need to know how to use them, how to manipulate them, how to display them, and so on. So we have to do that one next.